Welcome to Day 3 of DynamicsCon. We hope you're feeling the power of community from the first 2 days filled with learning and networking. Thank you to our sponsors for making this event entirely free. Now, let's gear up for an adventurous final day of DynamicsCon.
Stratos Cloud Alliance is different from other indirect providers because we have, hundreds of partners, not thousands of partners. We're more intimate with those partners, understanding their business, working with them directly, hand in hand, helping them, grow their practice. So there's a tremendous opportunity for partners to grow their cloud practice, not just with Dynamics 365, but across all of Microsoft's clouds. And the benefit of Velocio and Stratos Cloud Alliance and our indirect partner programs is that they don't have to do it alone. We're here to help them and to support them through the process.
Please welcome our first speaker of the day here in the Business Central track, Eric Waldo Wauters, a development manager. Today, he will be presenting Business Central Development Life Hacks. Please stick around after Eric's session for a live Q&A.
Hello, thank you for having me again at DynamicsCon. It's a great honor, especially there were so many speakers this year with so many good topics. And yeah, you picked mine, so I'm going to do my best to actually deliver what I promised to deliver as part of the topic. This topic is going to be about Business Central Development Life Hacks. I'm Waldo. I'm Eric Wauters. I'm not going to tell you how many years I'm an MVP because basically I am, it makes me feel too old, let's say. I'm owner of Dynex BV, which is a training company and a consulting company which works mainly for Effective Business Solutions, where I'm a partner as well. We are an ISV and a VAR, and I am a development manager. Basically, I am responsible for product development and product implementation, the technical side. I'm also owner of Waldo, which is basically been selling the ALOps solution for DevOps. Enough about me. What I want to do is take you in development life hacks. And when we talk about Business Central development, we obviously talk about VSCode. So what I decided to do is make this session into one big demo. So I will leave PowerPoint here and I will enter VSCode right away. So what you see here already, obviously, is VSCode. What I'm not going to do during this session is going to talk too much about the basics. I'm going to assume that all of you have Business Central development experience. I'm not going to talk about what we use in a daily basis. I try to focus a little bit on the less obvious stuff, the extensions you don't know yet, maybe the shortcuts you don't know yet, some settings that might make your life a little bit more efficient. So I'm going to use VSCode as my PowerPoint. And the way I'm going to do that, and let that be already the first tip, I created basically just one file, the demo MD file, and an MD file within code makes actually all the sense in the world. It basically, VSCode understands the MD syntax and translates that into symbols as well. And that kind of like gives me the opportunity to outline my demo. So my demo this session is going to be about shortcuts, And then I'm going to dive a little bit into searching, a little bit up it a little bit with multiroot workspace. You all know how I'm a fan of that. And then dive just a tiny bit into settings. Don't worry, I'm not going to share my 1500 lines of settings. And again, as you know, I'm quite a snippet fan as well. Let's see what we can do about that. Next, extensions. And what I look most out for is a project from Stefan Maron. Great guy who put a lot of time in helping the community with a project like this. And if there's one life hack of the year, I think this is my life hack of the year. And I would like to share that with you as well. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to show you things that you find obvious. I try to be less obvious. So I try to focus all of these topics, the snippets, the extensions, to something that I think most of you don't know yet. Okay, so let's dive right in because I do not have too much time. And let's go into the first topic. And you see here me already using a shortcut. And you might have seen below as well that something popped up. Now, that's what we use, screencasting. And you can just toggle screencasting from the command palette. And if you enable that, basically what you see now below my screen, that is actually what's happening. You can share the key presses that you are doing. Now, to give us a little bit more real estate, and while coding you actually want that, obviously, you can use Ctrl-B and Ctrl-J to hide the panel as well. So it gives us now a nice little overview of what I would like to show you furthermore with the shortcuts. Now, again, shortcuts, when we talk about shortcuts, it's about the shortcut, not the keyboard shortcut, right? It's about the ability VSCode gives us to do something shorter. So it's not directly like, hey, what key presses did he do? No, there is an ability to actually hide the side panel, for instance, and a lot more that we do. And that is kind of like what I would like to, let's say, show you with this demo. Now, next one, Ctrl-R. This is one that I use quite a lot. This is opening a project, opening a workspace. Ctrl-R gives me the ability to search through workspaces that I already opened. And not only that, it's also going to search through folders where my workspaces are. So you see here that the workspace is not called Distri Apps, but it is on the folder on my disk. So you can easily find that way the different kind of workspaces when you think of it. Also, for instance, for customers, and you see here now I have a customers folder with different workspaces, and I can easily find the right workspace that way. Ctrl-R, one of the most used in my, but yeah, actually all of these are quite most used when you think of it. Ctrl-P, find files. So when within one workspace, and I obviously already have a workspace open with lots of files, you can search for files. And this is usually how I search for things when I'm actually actively searching for code. I'm not going to bother time with opening the Explorer and start clicking around here. I'm not doing that. No, just Ctrl-P and start typing. Like I'm searching for a table, or I'm searching for a table from the icon app, and these kind of things, or from the MFF, these kind of things. And then you see here, hey, you have this is quite a weird example. It's like this one again. I have two icon tables of the icon app. Nice. And if I would like to open both of them now, just don't press enter because that would close my search window. No, Ctrl-P, icon table, just press arrow right. And then the search window stays open. Now I can go down and open the other one again. And you see here, now I have both icon tables open. How cool is that? This is efficiency. Now, when you're editing, and maybe I should have put this in the while coding part, but when editing, you can actually when you're focusing here in the middle of the line with Control Enter, you create a new line without breaking the previous one. This is actually within coding quite useful as well. When you're within a bracket, when you're within an if, you can basically just go into the if with Control Enter. And Control Shift Enter, by the way, just adds a line above. Very useful. Now, when moving, quite similar, with Alt up and down, you can move a certain line up and down. Let me show you that maybe shortly in some code unit. So let's just say that I would like to move all my entire procedure down. I can basically just with Alt down, get it down, or with Alt up, get it up. I do this all the time. I move my code up and down with my shortcuts. It's kind of like a similar thing for copying down. It's not going to be Alt down, but Alt Shift down, and you copy the entire section down as you see. And you can easily, like code cloning. Yes, I'm a little bit allergic for code cloning, but you would be able to simply code clone the heck out of it. Makes a little bit more sense, like in some page. Let me move this to the left, where you would create like an address and an address to page, for instance, and this copy down. There are a lot of cases where you can just clone a line or multiple lines and then just change it a little bit to adapt to the code that you want. Now, let's continue while coding. This Control-Shift space thing is something that many people forget, but last time I tried it, it didn't work. It doesn't work now either. But the idea is that that you get the tooltip right here. Now, I heard there's a bug in the compiler that this doesn't work, but don't worry, I have an extension for you that might help you with these things as well. But do remember this one, but because in case like in this case where you would develop this function and you're not aware like what parameters are there, how many parameters are there, with Control-Shift space, it should show you the tooltip at that point. Kind of like the same as if you would hover over it and then show you the tooltip information. Yeah, while coding, you sometimes comment as well. What I usually do, I select Control colon, that's it, and Control colon to uncomment as well. Well, there is a toggle block comment as well. This is not block commenting, this is line commenting. Block commenting is with the other kind of commenting, what you see here. Usually don't use that. I usually just use the line commenting. Breadcrumbs. If you don't know what breadcrumbs are, here they are. It's basically just for you breadcrumbs of where do I come from. So in this case, move data comes from this symbol, this file, this workspace. And the while coding part comes from, and so on this workspace. So it's kind of like a combination of where in the folder and where in the file. Now, accessing these breadcrumbs from the keyboard is also quite interesting, especially when you are in an object with a little bit more symbols. You can access all the symbols just by a simple click and navigate through the files and the symbols and even search within the symbols at that point. I use that all the time. Multiple editors, you already see me some moving around here. You can obviously do that with a shortcut, keyboard shortcut as well. Not just moving around, what I do with Control Alt left right, but also with Control page up, just activating a certain editor. And if you, for instance, closed these editors and you didn't want to close them, well, with Control Shift T, you can always reopen a closed editor. Very nice shortcut. Especially when you accidentally close lots of editors. You can basically just do this a lot of times and it's going to open all my editors that I just closed. Very nice. Do know there is this Alt left, sorry, the Alt left right as well. which is basically going back in time of your navigation. So wherever you were in whatever file, you can go back to it, Alt left. Kind of like the same as opening a tab, only opening a new tab just opens the file, while here it will also focus in the place that you were at that point. Alt left right is again very, very interesting. Last but not least, the multi-cursor editing, where you have multi-cursor editing. Simply said, with Alt click, you have multi-cursors where you can type on multiple places at the same time. But where this really comes in handy is when you would maybe again have this page, and when you, for instance, have some kind of reason to select all fields here. Well, you can do that with the Control D, where you can simply select all fields, or with Control U, you can unselect if you selected one too many. And then again, you have these multi-cursor thing. And you can basically say like, okay, I want to go down and I want to add some tooltips or whatever on multiple places at the same time. Multi-cursor editing in the end is something that you really need to get used to have a benefit from it. But once you get used to that, I promise you, you will get a lot of benefit from it. Do know that multi-cursor editing is not the same as symbol rename. Symbol rename is actually the one and only thing that you should use when you rename symbols, when you rename variable, rename a function, rename code unit name, for instance, because a symbol rename will also rename across multiple files and even workspaces. Makes all the sense in the world to use the symbol rename. Okay, so that concludes the shortcutting part. Let's go a little bit into the searching. I know you know searching. I'm not going to tell you the basics. I'm trying to keep with the less obvious stuff. So I'm not going to tell you that you can actually Control F and there are like search options here for case sensitive and whole word. I'm not going to tell you that, which I just actually did. But let's focus a little bit on the global search, or at least what I like to use or call the global search. Control-Shift-F, or the one here on the left. Maybe first thing, there is a history. So when you just use arrow up, you can already see that I have been doing stuff already, and you can go back and forward into that history and basically just redo a search that you might have done yesterday. Once you know that it's there, I promise you, you will use it a lot. Now, one of these searches, and you might have seen it already, looks a little bit different. And this is what we call a regex search, regular expressions. For a Belgian, quite hard to pronunciate. But yeah, regex search, let's say. So it gives you a syntax to search more efficiently. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually searching for what we call methods. And I know that the method always starts with the local procedure and has the word do in it, and then ends with, has a lot of characters and then ends with handled Boolean. I know that, and basically it's this kind of function. Okay, that's nice, but maybe I would like to find and replace something within this. Let's just imagine that I would like to replace this with main, but this for all my 500 and some methods. So that is going to be quite easy. Quite easy because you see here I also introduced the brackets, and these brackets in regex are groups. So I can address this group, the first group as $1 and the second group as $2. So if I would show this now, I actually removed the do. You see here, and if I go back here for another kind of method with another name, I removed the do as well. So that's kind of like very powerful. I'm not exactly searching for the text. The text can deviate. That's actually any kind of character, any number of characters. And I can now refer to the parts that I do want to keep and basically just, in this case, maybe replace by main and that place. Now, what I'm also showing you, but without telling you, is actually the preview, right? The preview is really powerful, actually. You can really see that the thing that you're doing here in the Find Your Place is actually what you really want to do. Do know you can collapse these and see how many you find for each workspace in this case, or each file, how many instances you have within this case. Very, very useful information. Last but not least, you can open the search result into an editor. Why would you use that? Well, if you can open it into an editor, you can save it. You can save it in source control and share it with your team. So lots of people now can execute this search. So maybe you are doing something. It's kind of like a work file. Like if this search ends up in 0, then my project is done, kind of thing, right? A to-do. Do know that if you save this file, everyone can execute the search. And that's actually what you want to do. And not only that, when you look into the file, you can simply double click and then you end up in the actual place, and you can actually do something like manually change this to main, go back. Well, I actually don't want to save it. Let me save it. Go back to the search, and if I go up now and redo the search, you will see I obviously have less files. I can now save this file again, same file, and then update my source control. Okay, so far for searching. Let's go further into the multi-root workspace. As you see here, I have multiple roots, and I will go to Explorer so I can show you that better. And that kind of like means multiple roots, kind of like means you have multiple workspaces at the same time open. In terms of AL development, you have multiple apps open that you develop at the same time. And obviously in terms of dependencies, which I'm a big fan of, you see here, this is my all apps and they are dependent on each other. That's kind of like gives you the ability to efficiently work together on these files. For instance, I know that the base app depends on the environment app. And you see here that in my symbols, you actually have that symbol there. Now just remove that symbol. And now, if I now go to the environment app, open just one file, can be any file. If I now build that file, you see automatically I will get that symbol back in my base app. This is the multi-root magic that the AL compiler can do for you. You can really work on all these apps at the same time because they are open in the multi-root workspace. And the only thing that you need to do is simply add folder to workspace, and that way add all your app folders with your app.json file in it, add them to your workspace, and yeah, you have a multi-root folder. And there are more things that you can do. For instance, recently I created a function, a dependency graph. So the graph is dependency graph, and what it will do is actually read all the app.jsons in your multi-root workspace and draw a dependency graph from it. So from all my workspaces here that I have, this is my dependency graph. Yeah. So we have completely unrelated apps, REST and REST win. And then we have, let's call it a product, a modular product in multiple apps, with the dependencies as you have seen here. And again, this tells me that the base indeed is dependent on the environment app. Quite interesting information, especially, and I'm using now this Control-R to switch to another workspace, especially when you have a workspace like this, when you have, yeah, let's say a little bit more apps. Yeah. And if you want to have a picture on that, obviously that is also possible. And yeah, this might look spaghetti for you, but this kind of like when you really analyze it, tells me that, yeah, yes, there are a lot of apps. Yes, there are a lot of dependencies, but actually it's only by maximum a 5-level dependency, and that's not that bad. And how you see that? It's very horizontal, it's not that vertical, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels at most. In any case, we're not going to talk too much on dependencies. But yeah, having a multi-root workspace gives you a lot more advantages in many ways. Trust me. Next topic, and again, I'm using breadcrumbs here to go to my next topic. Settings. I'm not going to tell you too much about settings. I'm not going to show you my 150 settings. Yes, I do have quite a lot of settings. I have a lot of them. Not going to share too much yet. What I wanted to show, and what I always use settings, is in the JSON format as this here. I see a lot of people using the UI format. You can switch to the UI format like that. But what I don't see here in the UI is what I actually are my settings. What did I change? Until recently, what I found that you actually can filter this to modified. And now these are the settings in UI format, but only the ones that I actually modified in my environment. So this is, in my opinion, let's say the first step where I will use the UI format for settings. And this is something that I really want to show you together with another option. And that is the ability to synchronize settings between multiple PCs. Now I'm using two PCs, a laptop and just a normal desktop. And I basically just switch on and sync it through my GitHub account. And now basically all my settings will always be synchronized between my 2 PCs. And if I would have 3 at one point, at 3 PCs. That is what I wanted to show you and share with you during this. Now, there's one setting that I didn't share yet that I absolutely want to share, which is this search exclude. Now, if you see here what I'm doing, a lot of times when you would search, it's also going to search in the AL cache. Let me switch this off for a minute. And if I would search for envy, for instance, it's going to show me results in red JSON cache files, and I'm really not interested in that. And you can exclude them with a simple setting, search exclude. Where if you would like to do that now, it's really going to show you the actual clean results without these caching files. Now you could do quite the same for not searching, but actually showing them here in your Explorer. So in many cases, I'm really not interested in this .snapshot file. So what you could do is add the snapshots in the X files exclude, and you will never see them again. And what you might not be interested either, which I'm not, is the generated app files, which you could also exclude this way. Now in this case, I'm only excluding the one in the root. I'm not excluding them in the // which stands for any kind of subdirectory. So I still see my symbol files, as you see here. So these are settings that I like, and let's move on to snippets. As said, maybe I didn't say it yet, but I'm not going to show you how to do snippets and if you like snippets and how to create snippets. No, there is a very decent website for that. It's just on the Visual Studio Code website. It's the best description ever. It's not long, and please get used to that. It's very good. But what I would like to show you is how to disable snippets, because many extensions, and we have a lot of extensions, you have a lot of snippets and probably a lot that you don't use. Well, you can disable snippet. There's always a possibility to disable a snippet. So let me just simply open this. And you will see here, I, for instance, already have quite a lot of code unit snippets. And if you see here, I add quite a lot of snippets in my extension as well. And if you're really not into that, either you could disable a snippet from the settings. Some extensions will include an ability, for instance, CRS disable default AL snippets or CRS snippets, or if an extension does not give you the ability to disable the snippets, there is always an extension which is called control snippets, this one, which lets you control snippets. So here gives you an overview, and you can simply disable all those snippets and more if you would like. And then it's going to actually disable that snippet as well. So as I said, you will always be able to disable the snippets if you do not want to see them. Sometimes you don't want to disable, but a little bit change the snippets. Well, you cannot change snippets, but what you can do is copy and make your own, right? The only thing that you need to know is where they are. So they are basically in the user profile.vscode extension folder. If you go there, let me quickly go there. You see all the snippets that I have created, and just go to an extension where you want a snippet from. In the snippets folder, you will find the snippet. It's easy to just open this, obviously in VS Code, so you can really browse a snippet, and you would be able to just copy the snippet, right? Go here, go to your user snippets, and configure your own snippets. Change it a little bit or how you want that, and then you have your snippet on how you want that. It's very easy to do. That's how I started basically with snippets as well. Okay, let's go a little bit more into extensions. As I said, I'm not going to talk about extensions that I actually made available in the AL extension pack. Now, if you don't know the AL extension pack, yeah, well, then you're missing a lot of extensions at this point. This is something that I created to just make a lot of extensions that I think are really useful, make them available out of the box. But recently, I came across a few more extensions, being the errorlens and the docsview. And the errorlens is my most favorite, actually. So let's just switch it on. I will enable the errorlens extension this way. And what it does, the lens already hints to in code. It's going to actually show you the errors, and not just errors, also the warnings and information in code. So if I open my code unit again, maybe, which I know had a lot of problems, I will open it here. You see here already the problems popping up. And this is actually what I mean. All the warnings, all the errors are in line. You don't have to hover. You don't have to search through problems. It is just in line, and you can start doing something about it, like actually using these variables, like custom.getInt, but no, yes, no, you shouldn't be doing that. But this is going to introduce probably another problem, lots of problems. But anyway, this is what I mean. It gives you the information while you're working on your code, and it gives you that right in your face, actually. Where do you want it while coding? Errorlens, very simple extension, but I think very valuable. Another valuable extension, I think, and I tend to use that actually more than I would like to say, is actually the docsview. Now, I noticed that my compiler is a little bit slow today, but let's see how it goes. Now, the docsview extension, where is it? Sorry, it's this one from Matt Bierner, very known in VS Code community. Well, it's a very simple extension. Only thing that it does is add this documentation part here. And what it does actually, when you are in code and you would select a variable, it's going to show you that documentation of that variable. So remember that with Ctrl+Shift+Space, we should be able to show me the information on this code here. I should be able to show that with the documentation view as well. Now, there's clearly something wrong with my symbols. So at this point, it's not doing that, but at least it does that for my record variable and so on. I know what's going on. I've got the wrong variable name here. So now you see here the actual function name, but last but not least, also all the parameters that I was missing as information here. So what I would be able to do is just pin this for a second. And while I'm coding this parameters, I have always a view on the documentation on this part. The same I would be able to do, for instance, when I unpin this and then take the customer view and then pin this again, and I would be able to just look at it and maybe just copy paste from it. Yes, you can search and copy paste from this as well. So last but not least, definitely deserves the right amount of attention is the effort that Stefan Maron did to give us a better access to not only just base code from Business Central, but definitely also the history of the base code of Business Central. Now, Stefan has created a blog post about it. I strongly recommend you to read that. But what he talks about is how you can use that on GitHub. And obviously, it's very useful. I mean, it's always there. You can just browse to GitHub and you can browse the code. But what I would like to use is to use this, all the tools that we just be talking about on his project. So what I did, I went to GitHub and I basically just, I don't went to GitHub, I basically just copied that URL and I cloned that, clone and pasted. So I opened, and you see here the project that he has been working on. And I just want to touch a few things. First of all, you have all code, all apps, the base app is here, all test apps, all separate apps, you have it all. And not just that, you have the history. And you see here the history of all things. And you see here 17.4, which is at this day when we recorded this, the latest version of Business Central. But you also see 17.3, 2, 1. And not only that, you have for each localization a branch. And each localization and major version, there is a branch that you can refer to. So if you wonder, like, okay, what has changed between the Belgian localization, you select for compare and W1 in version 17, and you basically just compare what's selected. Here are all the Belgian changes. Oh, sorry. In the base app, for instance, yeah, and you see here, maybe I can just show you just any of the file, the app.json, for instance, and yeah, in the Belgian app, it's actually BE and not W1. That's logical. But you see here every single thing that was changed, especially for the Belgian localization. It's unbelievable, powerful. And not only that, you can, Stefan also created workspace files. So cool. You can open the workspace files because, yeah, by default, these doesn't have manifest. We just open the workspace for the base app, and you basically open the base app as being a workspace for an app, which you would be able to compile. If you download the symbols for the system app, you would be able to compile that base app. And not just compile, you would be able to search for code, the customer table, for instance, and navigate into this code, like this code unit. Let's go to the definition of this code unit. Now, when it would have loaded, it's obviously quite a big, well, here it is already. So I'm navigating through the base app code like it would have been just my own code. And all that by a simple clone repository, right? Now, I just showed you how I can compare Belgium or any kind of localization with W1. You can obviously also compare 17 to 16 or a CU version and figure out what has changed during the latest CU update. I love the thing that he did. I'm using it almost every day, and absolutely it's worth a lot for me. Don't forget, when 17.5 is out, The only thing that I need to do is very simply go to my, the workspace and synchronize. And it will get 17.5 because Stefan will have updated that code. How cool is that? So let's conclude with some resources. Stefan's blog, Matt Bierner, is absolutely something that you need to see on YouTube. A lot of tips concerning VS Code. Waldemar also shares quite a lot of tips on VS Code on his blog. And okay, thank you so much for joining my session.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Well, that was a show, man. It was kind of a brain dump.
Well, I wanted to show new things, not the things that have been shown for quite some time already. So also the new extensions, and I think there are a few new ones now.
Yeah, well, it was great. I was watching the comments, and people were just installing those extensions right away.
Which is good. They helped me a lot.
And actually, I did too. I didn't know about the errorlens. How could I miss that? That was a great one.
Yeah,
really great. So actually, there were not that many questions at this time. So folks, post your questions in the comments so we can, or Waldo can address them.
Well, maybe I have a suggestion for that. So maybe if people can answer through the questions thing, I have another demo that I might be able to do here for the case, things that I needed to skip during the recording because I had more content. Okay. So maybe I could do that if you would like.
Of course. Just I have just one question myself.
Yes.
A question I actually got this morning from somebody. How many files could you have in a workspace before VS Code starts to be slow? Is that a 5,000? Is that a 10,000? Any experience with that?
I have no experience with that. I have 75 workspaces in my daily project, which is 75 apps, which is basically like a little bit more than 35 apps with their test apps, right? And in total, it's about 6,000 or 7,000 files.
Okay, got it.
Which is not a problem at all.
Okay. No, they had 12,000, and that is awful slow.
Well, the thing is, if you have 12,000 files in one workspace, I have them spread over multiples, right?
Yeah.
Then it might be a problem, not because of VS Code, but because of the compiler and the background analysis that's going on at that point. And that could be a problem, absolutely. When you have one big monolith with 6,000 objects, that's probably where the AI language extension is going to have a problem, and at least go a little bit slower. Yeah.
Okay. So what did you have to share? Because people are still not posting any questions right now.
Okay. Again, I did not really prepare this, but let's give it a go. I can share my screen if I'm try to do that. So I have no idea if my screen is now shared, but it says it is shared. So look at that.
It is shared.
Let me. My session, and what I actually wanted to show as well is tasks and the ability to run tasks from VS Code and the ability for you to be able to set up your own tasks. Now, in my case, a task is usually a PowerShell script. You might be surprised by that or might not be surprised by that.
No.
So I have a number of PowerShell scripts that help me in managing my multiple workspaces that I have open here. So these are my 75 workspaces. And sometimes I would like to change, like I'm all in this branch, the prep next major branch, and sometimes I'm in the Waldo branch and so on. And sometimes I just want to work on all my workspaces because I have to do a change on the pipelines, or do I have to change something on the app JSONs or something like that. And I want to do that through kind of like the same branches. Changing a branch you can do one by one, obviously, for all your workspaces, but for 75, that's quite a lot. And this is actually where my PowerShell scripting comes into place. I did create some PowerShell scripts for that, and I shouldn't be showing this, actually. Let me try to get to those scripts. Where are my scripts? Multiroots. Here they are. So just a bunch of scripts that let me do stuff like switch a branch that we was talking about, but a lot more. Now with doing with actually enabling user tasks, so you can go into user tasks, you are able to set it up to run PowerShell and to set up multiple tasks. I've done multiple tasks, and one task is going to refer to one script, as you can see here. So this makes actually these scripts available to me. So I only have 1 minute, so let me be quick. I can simply now run a task, switch branch.
You have time enough. The 1 minute was just the 1 minute before we got live. You see the comment. No worries.
So
we want to see it.
To Waldo branch, and now you see here that all my workspaces, I even have one error here, are now switched to the Waldo branch, as you can see here.
Okay.
So that makes actually, that's the one that I created today. So we have a new app today, and that's probably which one was failed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So that is normal that it failed because that branch doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. People now
have actually
you show PowerShell because they were waiting for that.
Oh yeah, okay. Let me show it again then. So here was a script to switch the branch.
Should we know Waldo demo without it?
Yeah, that's true. And snippets I read as well, so I need to show snippets apparently.
Yeah, I know that. We even had that bowling ball team, right?
So did I convince you now for using snippets? Or are you still not using snippets?
I'm still not using them, but that's me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Sorry for that. Yeah. But so one question, it just someone wants to know, Zoran, he asked how much time did it take for you find out all those shortcuts? But where do you get them?
Well, the thing is, I try to get used to them, right? And from the moment I see that I am doing or using a function too much from the command palette, I try to look at the shortcut and try to get myself familiar with that. That's actually the only thing, because I love obviously using shortcuts. I think that it's quite clear after the day. But when you get used to them, and that doesn't take too much, when you get used to them, it's basically just like
one
muscle memory.
One shortcut I'm missing myself is download symbols. So I just added the shortcut for that.
Yeah, you could do that.
There are also shortcuts in AL that you never use.
Yeah, I use a script for that. There is a symbol download script for that as well. So this script is actually also in my task. So let's basically download symbols for all the 75 projects in one go.
Man. If there is anything you cannot automate, you're probably not happy at all.
Well, then my job is done. I can retire, I guess.
So, and how many people are working on those 75 apps in total?
15. We have 15 developers.
15.
15. Yeah.
Okay. And looking for more, right?
I must say it's now mostly in maintenance mode. Like we are hotfixing once in a while, but we are purely in implementation at this moment. But in that case, I even have this customer's workspace, as you see here. So even all my customers are just in one big multi-root workspace as well, which sometimes makes sense, especially when working on pipelines, for instance, which is usually something that you want to do the same for all projects that you have. So in that case, I'd be working on multiple, having that multi-root workspace for that.
So get a question from Klaus. Are we getting a task add-on for VS Code anytime?
A task add-on.
Yeah, that's the question.
A task add-on. I'm not sure what he means with that.
Can you explain what you mean with a task add-on? And Klaus would like to have a bunch of pre-made tasks from Waldo. Well, what task are you talking about?
These tasks are already on my GitHub. So it's basically just in the scripts folder from my PowerShell, and then v2 multiroot workspaces, and these are already there. Basically, every PowerShell script is already there that I create.
Could you include those PowerShell scripts in an app for Visual Studio Code?
Yeah.
An extension?
That could be an extension. Yes.
That could be an extension. Right. I guess that's what Klaus meant.
Like that. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Let me think about that.
Okay, Jeff. Okay, in a couple of weeks, probably.
Months, given my
workload. Come on. All right. So yes, that's what Klaus was talking about. He's now confirmed.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Well, I'll think about it.
Okay, great. That's is nice. So, any other thing you want to share now that you have your screen shared?
Well, I have Hendrik's question now. I'm not sure if I understand the multi-workspace thing. Do you have a workspace that themselves has a workspace? Not really. This is not a multi-root, so let me. This is the same time, which you can compile against, right? So if I just open one of these files, and if I would execute now a command, it would be against this workspace. Opening multiple workspaces is quite simple. You can add to the current workspace, and what it builds in the background is a JSON file. Let me open my file. So it builds actually just a JSON file, which refers to the different workspaces that you have open. And thanks to this JSON file, actually it's a code-workspace file. Thanks to this file, I am able to open all these workspaces at the same time by opening this file, basically. Yeah. That's kind of like the idea.
I think in VSCode terms, everything is a workspace. And if you put multiple folders in a workspace, it's going to be workspace with folders or projects for individual folders, right?
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. All these are just folders in the background. I can even reveal it, and you see just the licensing folder.
And every folder can have its own
which you would open. Yeah, I can simply open this folder as a workspace as well. That's kind of like the idea.
And then Eric asked if every developer is creating their own workspace, or is it part of the Git repo?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, because basically all developers create their own big workspace folders, making this part of one of the multiple repositories, because in my case, I have multiple repositories, right? So in which repository I would add this workspace file, right? So what we do is kind of like the combination. This kind of workspace is what the developer is going to manage. It's basically just only local on my machine, because I want to have one big multi-root workspace. But per repository, so if I go back to the repository, you will see that we have a code workspace folder here, especially for this one repository. If I would open this one, you will see it's again multi-root, but only the two apps that were part of this repository. And that is actually the only thing that we can add in a repository for source control. The overall one, I cannot really add to one of the repositories because there is not an overall repository. That's kind of like the thing.
Yeah, others might want to put it into one repository, but then have multiple folders in it, right? It's not what you do.
I mean?
I mean, you're not putting them in one big repo.
No, it's not in one big repository. All of these are separate repositories. That's also why I go to source control. I have all my repositories separately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's also why I have a script to switch the branch, to switch the branch on all these repositories. Yeah.
I get a question. Any trick to reorder the folders from the workspace without editing it manually?
No trick. No. That's maybe a good idea as some kind of extension, because it's pretty easy. Just a JSON file, right? So I think it should be doable. I think that's actually a good idea to like create a script for that. In PowerShell, I would do that, but that's maybe a good idea. Yeah,
all right.
Because I've been struggling with that as well. Like I've got them in a logical order, not in an alphabetical order, and sometimes I regret that. Let's say I would like to have them in alphabetical.
And can you show what the settings are at the different levels? So user, workspace settings, and folder settings.
Yeah, there are actually 3 levels, especially when you work with the multiroot workspace. Obviously, there is the user settings, right? We have that top level settings. That's for me as a user for all my projects that I work on. User setting, this is the one. And then you have the 2 workspace levels, especially in multiroot. When you browse down the workspace here, you will see that there are settings. You will see that I don't have too many of them, because this is my own personal multiroot workspace settings file, which these settings will only apply if I'm using this multiroot workspace. Yeah. So that's why I have most of the settings just in the app itself. And this is actually the workspace for the app. I have my settings for the app.
This is shortcut to open the settings, right?
There is a shortcut. Control,
comma.
Control, comma. Okay, I don't use that one, you see.
I can teach you something here.
Yeah. There are a lot of things you can teach me, man.
All right. So I think we have 2 or 3 minutes left. So one more question, just for fun. How many objects do you have in your biggest app, and how many in the smallest app?
I've got close to 2,000 objects in the biggest app, which is the base app here. And the smallest is 2, I think. 2 or maybe a little bit more already. Was it the REST app? No, the REST Win app was it. So I think, 2 objects.
2 objects, all right.
That's the smallest.
And then a question is a little bit off topic, but just asking. Is there any way to debug a next session for web service client? Do you know that?
Debug next?
Debug a next session.
As far as I know, there is a way to do that. AJ, you know that as well, right?
I'm asking you. You're the presenter.
Well, honestly, I never did. I never used it. I tried it once. And as far as I know, you need to play around with a new launch JSON here. Add a configuration. I don't know.
The configuration for attach.
Yeah, and then there is an attach to next client here. Exactly. And then you have either the ability to do that on Sandbox, SaaS Sandbox, or a server, your own server. And then that's basically
the break on next web service client. There we go. On line 34 it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't do that too much, honestly.
Well, I do it a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. You as an API guru.
Well, yeah, actually, in my API projects, I have even launched browser set to false because I'm using Postman to test them, not the client. But that's another story.
No, let's not go into that.
PowerShell?
Don't do that.
No, let's not go into that one. All right. See if there are any other questions. I don't see any other questions coming in right now. Maybe I skip one. I'm not sure. Not seeing any. But I think it's also time.
Well, there's one more question. Is each folder on your workspace an own repository, Well, no. Actually, these two folders is one repository. Actually, so that's the app of one and the test app of one repository. When we go to repositories, you will actually only see one. Where is it? One licensing repository, which has, in my case, two workspaces, because it has two apps. It needs to be done like that. Else the compiler doesn't work. Yeah. And that was the last question I've seen in the list here as well.
Oh, I see one question now coming in. Have you any favorite PowerShell script that you cannot live without?
No, I cannot live without my PowerShell collection, which makes it easy for me on multiple levels. The ones that I use most, obviously, are the Docker parts, so to create my Dockers, right? And the ones that I just showed, actually, that these days, most of them I call through the tasks in VSCode. Not all of them yet, because I didn't transfer all of them yet to the tasks. But these are the ones that I basically use now all the time.
All right. Well, that was the last question, and they're saying we can have 3 to 4 hours tonight in the start mention to discuss.
I'll try to be there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for this great session, Waldo. It was
thank you for joining me.
Really a blast. Absolutely great.